All right, well, we're continuing our study of the book of Esther on Wednesday nights. Tonight we'll be in chapter 6 of Esther. So where we left off, if you remember, and I wasn't with you last Wednesday, Paul was, and I understand he threw y'all a curve and did the Bible study first and then prayed, and what were you thinking, man? But anyway, so when we left off with Esther, Esther had worked up the courage to go before the king to make her request that her people, the Jews, be spared from Haman's terrible plot to extinguish the Jewish people. And so she goes before the king and he extends the scepter and he says, "Ask me whatever you want and I'll give it to you up to half the kingdom." And what does she say? "Come to dinner." If you didn't know better, you'd think the little girl was stalling or something, wouldn't you? Come to dinner. So she makes a banquet for him and for Haman as well. And at the conclusion of dinner, the king says, "All right, now, ask me whatever it is that's on your mind." She says, "What?" "Come to dinner tomorrow and bring Haman with you. And I promise tomorrow I will tell you what's on my mind." And that's where we left off. So we're going to pick up verse 1 of Esther chapter 6. That night, the king could not sleep. So one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king, and it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, the doorkeepers who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. Then the king said, "What honor or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" And the king's servants who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." Now, I forgot to bring you all up to speed on this. Haman, in the meantime, while all of these dinner invitations were going on, Haman is extremely irritated with Mordecai. Why? He won't bow down. He won't bow down when Haman comes by. And so he goes home and he tells his wife and all of his friends, "I've had all these honors, and the queen made a dinner just for me and the king and nobody else, and all these good things are happening to me, and yet I'm still miserable because Mordecai the Jew won't bow down before me." And so what does his godly wife of wisdom, what does she say? Build a gallows, go tell the king, and have Mordecai hanged on the gallows, and then go enjoy your dinner, and you won't have to worry about it. You can just eat in peace that way. So all of these little subplots are kind of coming together now. So the night before the dinner of destiny, the king can't sleep. For whatever reason, he can't sleep. And so they're reading, he asked that the book of Chronicles of the Kingdom be read. I guess he figured that was sufficiently boring enough to put anybody to sleep. So as the records are being read, it's read in the records that Mordecai was the one that gave the tip-off that there was an assassination plot for the king. And so he just asked the question, what's been done to honor this Mordecai? And the answer is nothing. And so the king is going to now, he's going to honor in some way. He's got to figure out some way or another to honor Mordecai. Now, why was it important for the king, to the king, that Mordecai be rewarded? Why was this a big deal? He saved his life. So the security of the king demands that loyalty be rewarded. If you're the king, particularly one in which you're unliked enough that people are attempting to assassinate you, then you want to make sure that you reward your friends and you reward those who are loyal to you. So if you've got this guy that saved your life and you've done nothing to reward him, then the next time he finds out about a plot to assassinate you, he might just say what? Nothing. He might not say anything. Or others who might be privy to the situation, they might say, well, I'm not going to stick my neck out to help the king. I know of this guy Mordecai, and he was the one that revealed the assassination plot on the king, and the king did nothing to reward him. So it was important to the king that Mordecai be rewarded. Now let me ask this. Why do you think the king hadn't rewarded Mordecai up to this point? Exactly. Oversight. He forgot about it. I heard two things. I heard oversight and I heard he forgot about it, which both seem to be true. So what does that tell you about the king and his leadership? Sloppy. You cannot, if you are the king, you cannot let those oversights happen. They can't. You're the king of the most powerful empire in the world. You cannot use the excuse, oh, I forgot. The guy who stables the camels, he can forget and get away with it. The king of the Persian Empire cannot use the excuse, I forgot. You cannot have that kind of oversight. And so this is typical of what we've seen all along, poor leadership. He gets rid of his queen on a whim, on a tiff, if you will. The way he selects the new queen is, anything but using wisdom. The way he treats his friends, he ignores the righteous of his kingdom and he promotes the evil. Haman. So everything about this king, now if you read the history books about King Xerxes, and they may tell you what a great king and great leader he was. But the record of Scripture doesn't seem to bear that out. He had serious character flaws, but he also had serious leadership problems that affect his ability to lead the empire. So poor Mordecai, he is always doing good deeds and never remembered or rewarded for them. What other biblical character does this remind you of? It's a whole lot like Joseph. He always seems to be doing the right thing. He's always misunderstood, and when he does do a good deed, it's not remembered. Until one day that Pharaoh had a dream and Joseph's fortunes turn around. Mordecai's fortunes are about to turn around as well, and that's what this chapter is all about. This is one of the greatest chapters of the Old Testament, because do you like irony, spiritual irony? This is oozing with spiritual irony here. People ask me sometimes, do you think that God has a sense of humor? My answer to that is, I don't know if God has a sense of humor, but he certainly has a sense of irony, and we see it here. All right, questions on those verses? All right, let's look on then to verse 4. So the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to suggest that the king hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. The king's servants said to him, "Haman is there, standing in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So Haman came in, and the king asked him, what shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honor? I love this. Now Haman thought in his heart, whom would the king delight to honor more than me? And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delights to honor, let a royal robe be brought which the king has worn, and a horse on which the king has ridden, which has a royal crest placed on its head. Then let this robe and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that he may array the man whom the king delights to honor. Then parade him on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. The king said to Haman, hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have suggested, and do so for Mordecai the Jew who sits within the king's gate. Leave nothing undone of all that you have spoken. So Haman took the robe and the horse, arrayed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. So I tried all week long to try to pirate, I didn't really say that, to somehow get a clip of just a little 5-minute clip of the VeggieTales Esther, where Haman comes in and he says, what should be done, to honor, and he's going through all this. Of course, it's a kid's thing, he's going, and let him be put on a horse and led through the streets, and say, this is a really swell guy. The king really likes him. And the king goes, see, Haman, you're the creative one around here. I was just thinking of a card or something. He said, all those things you said, go do those for the good God Mordecai. So anyway, if I can somehow figure out how to get just a 5-minute clip of that, I will play that for you next week or subsequent weeks down the road. But yeah. So the king says, what should I do? I want to honor someone in my kingdom. Haman, what should I do? And he goes with this extravagant thing. Oh, put a royal robe on him, put a crown on him, put him on the king's horse, and parade him through town, and say, thus shall it be done to the one that the king desires to honor. Now, why is he making such an extravagant deal out of all this? Yeah, he thought it's going to be him. Why did he think it was going to be him? Yeah, pride. What's at work in Haman? Pride. So what's the theological irony of this situation? What's the spiritual truth coming out of this? Yeah. So, yeah, God exalts the humble, and God humbles the proud. The old adage of pride goes before a fall. It hasn't changed. It's still true. So, and Haman is miserable. Why is Haman so miserable? Yeah, he wanted to hang him. What do you have at work here? You have things like hatred, but you also have things like jealousy at work here. Pride is at work when you can't rejoice in someone else's good fortune. If you want to know if you've got pride in your life, when others have good fortune, are you jealous of them, or are you happy for them? For Haman, he wasn't happy. He was jealous. He hated Mordecai. He hated Mordecai's people, the Jews, and he was jealous that Mordecai was now getting the fame, the honor that he felt he should get. Now, why should he get it? What had Haman done for the king? Nothing. I mean, you read the record of Scripture, Haman hasn't done anything. Mordecai saved the king's life. And so does does Haman really love the king? No. I mean, if not, he would want to honor the one who had saved the king's life. But Haman loves who? Haman loves Haman, which is the way pride works. Pride only leaves room in our life to love one person, and that's ourselves. It squeezes the love for everyone else out. So, questions on those verses? All right, let's look on to verse 12 then. Afterward, Mordecai went back to the king's gate, but Haman hurried to his house, mourning, with his head covered. Oh my goodness, he's having a terrible day, isn't he? When Haman, it's going to get worse, though. It's going to get worse. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him." Now, that's an interesting thing. But Mordecai, before whom you've begun to fall. There seems to be this foresight or understanding among the people that are around Haman that there's more going on here than meets the eye. Because really nothing up to this point has happened to Haman. He's still going to dinner with the king and the queen. He's still the second highest guy in the kingdom. But yet they seem to understand that the fall has already begun. Verse 14, while they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs came and hastened to bring Haman to the banquet which Esther had prepared. So why do you think Haman's wife responds to his plight in such a way? Why does she say, if Mordecai is of Jewish descent, you won't prevail? She seemed to. Yeah, I mean, is she speaking prophetically here? Does she understand the Jews to be God's people? And so, woe to the one who stands against God's people? It's hard to know, but it seems she does have some sort of insight into the fact that that Haman is in a battle he can't win at this point. Yes. Yes. Right. Yes. So he hates the Jews, going back to ancestor versus ancestor of two people groups at war with one another. The interesting thing, if Israel would have done what God told them to do and wiped those people out to start with, there wouldn't have been a Haman to be causing the problems. But there seems to be some insight on the wife's part. Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it seems that she sees this situation turning around, and Haman, I'm not sure, saw it turning around until it was over with. At this point. Oh yeah. Here now, this is what pride and jealousy will do to you. Here's a guy that had everything seemingly that the world would say it takes to be happy. He had money, he had prestige, he was the second most powerful guy in the kingdom. He had the ear of the king, he was highly honored, and he's miserable. All because of one man. He let one man make him miserable. I mean, it's terrible. How do you see God at work in this situation? As Haman and his wife are speaking, and his wife is giving him this doom and gloom prophecy, if you want to put it in those terms, what happens? King's eunuchs come and he's swept away to the banquet. What's going to happen at the banquet? Yeah, and it won't be Mordecai swinging from the gallows. It will be Haman, right? So God, Esther is a book that God is never mentioned in, and yet it's a book that we see the hand of God throughout the book. Romans 8:20, all things, yeah, and who's working the good? God is. So God is in control of the situation. And God is even using the enemies of his people and their evil plots to bring about our good and his purpose. And that's still true for us today. That as God's people, everything works together for our good and for his purpose. Even the hurts that our enemies may attempt to bring about, even that God uses for our good and for his glory. So why is the timing so significant in this story? As Haman's fall is coming, what's happening to Mordecai? Yeah. So first half of the book we have Haman honored and Mordecai ignored. All right. Last half of the book, it's going to be turned upside down. And you're going to have Mordecai honored and you're going to have Haman humbled. And ultimately humbled by hanging on the gallows that he built for Mordecai. Don't lose that irony. The gallows that he built for Mordecai, he will end up swinging on himself. Yeah. It's great. I mean, it's like Hollywood doesn't write scripts that good. You can just picture, the man that he hates the most. He's got to, put a robe and a crown on him, put him on the king's horse, and can you see how this is going? Thus it shall be done for the one that the king desires to honor. Thus it shall, what? A little louder, Mordecai, Haman. Thus it shall be done for the one. And he finally gets, take off my hat, take off my coat. Honey, you're not going to believe the day that I had. Oh yeah? Well, it's going to get worse because this one that if Mordecai is of Jewish descent, you won't prevail against him. What? What do you mean? Come on, we got a banquet to go to. And it's all just happening just like that. Yeah. Yeah. How do you now go to the king and say, oh, by the way, that one that saved your life that we just got through honoring, I built a gallows out here. Let's hang him on it. I mean, so that's not even a thing anymore. Now Haman's going to be pleading for his own life. All right. I gave you a couple little application questions. What biblical truths do you see in this story in chapter 6? And he does what? Curses those who don't, right? Both of those are true. We want to make it, we want, or I say we, the world wants this idea that I can be neutral towards God. That I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Jesus freak, but I don't hate God. I'm not anti-God. But what did Jesus say? If you're not for me, you're against me. You can't sit on the fence. You're either for God or you're against him. What else do you see? Here's the ones that I got, and there's pride goes before the fall. Exactly, that's certainly one. Here's 4 that I pulled out, and you could pull a whole lot more than that. I said this. Number 1, man may forget, but God never does. Number 2, God exalts the humble and humbles the proud, which I think is kind of what we said there. Number 3, God will protect his people. And number 4, building gallows for others can be a dangerous proposition. So I've seen that play out, by the way. I've seen those who have laid traps for me personally as well as others that ended up getting caught in their own trap. So, and it's awfully hard not to. It's awfully hard not to rejoice at their demise, but I don't think that's a godly attitude to have. Can I just be honest? I don't always have a godly attitude sometimes. But yeah, you got to be careful. The gallows that you build for others, you sometimes swing on yourself. So how does this story demonstrate pride goes before the fall? I think we kind of hashed it out pretty good there, right? Questions, comments on chapter 6? All right. Well, yes, ma'am. Yeah. Right. Right. God is orchestrating the whole thing, isn't he? Yeah. And his timing is impeccable. Exactly. All right. Well, next week we'll pick up with chapter 7. The story's really getting good now, so we'll pick up right there. I'm going to give you back 15 minutes tonight. I've